Jai Guru, everyone. Welcome to the minute 2 of the Awake, the Life of Yogananda podcast. I am Mike Langmeier, and I'm joined here by my friends Priyank and Chris. Let's introduce ourselves quickly. Priyank, how are you doing today, and how was your morning meditation?
I'm doing good. My morning meditation was good. And interestingly, I read. I always read about 20 minutes of God Talks with Arjuna before my meditation, and read some interesting stuff today. That's relevant, surprisingly relevant for our podcast that we're going to do in minute 2. So I'll go through that.
Nice. How about you, Chris?
Good. Meditation this morning was good. Definitely got me in the right flow state for the day. So similar to Priyank, I do a little bit of reading before. But this time I read one of the small pamphlets on positive thinking, which is very useful given the times of COVID and challenges of working from home and not seeing anyone. So no, it was fantastic.
Sounds great.
Chris, didn't you propose to your girlfriend recently? We don't know how you did that.
Well, I did actually propose on the 3rd year anniversary day, and that was back in December. So it is a few months now, thankfully. She's still with me. She said yes, and we're planning to get married whenever COVID allows and do the SRF ceremony, and can't wait.
That'd be amazing. So you think you'll do the SRF ceremony, just the SRF ceremony, or you'll do a regular church?
Well, not a regular church. We're probably going to do something in the UK for my friends and family here. Maybe more of a reception, and then she's Brazilian, so we're going to do something in Brazil as well. And then my SRF family in London, I'll go over there separately for that. So we'll probably have 3 events.
Hopefully you'll invite us to go to Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've got this great. We've got this great.
Invite?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put me on the spot. No, we've got this great eco village. So we've got places for people to stay, and we grow our own food there. So it's vegetables and about 60 different trees bearing fruit and stuff like that. So it's pretty epic.
Mike was my best man for my SRF ceremony.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike, tell Chris about the process, the ceremony.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like it was when the monks came to London. So Priyank and Krina, they took the vows again, and they had like those beautiful vows written down, and were reading them to each other. It's very
moving.
Nice. I think Priyank is getting them now. Show them off. Of course he is. Yes.
Laminated.
Oh wow.
Nice. The picture from which Mike took. Brother Balananda, isn't it?
That is Brother Balananda indeed. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get different clothes. Feel apart. I don't know if suits and tuxedos and things like that are quite the scene.
The vows are absolutely stunning. Maybe one of the episodes it will come. Actually, it does. There is a marriage bit in one of the episodes. I'll read out some of the vows.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that one the most, I have to say. And thankfully, my fiance she's been to the SRF Center a number of times, and she's a fan of Yogananda as well. So I can't wait to do it. But it probably won't be until 2022. I'd say, given the state of things. So I'm in a long list of waiting.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have put off their weddings because of the coronavirus. So I feel like when it's over, then there's going to be a load of weddings everywhere.
Yeah. There'll be lots of weddings and maybe lots of babies in 2022, 2023.
That's great. All right, let's get back to the movie. the minute two that we're talking about today, it continues. You hear Anupam Kher's voice as Yogananda, still in the womb, and he talks about. Well, actually, let's listen to it and then talk about it afterwards. Let me put the audio clip on. There we go.
Occasionally, the darkness of the wound would be dispelled, and light would visit me. On one side, I wanted to express myself as a human being. Yet, on the other side, I didn't. Because I felt I was spirit.
So beautiful. Isn't it so interesting how he says he's in the womb, he wants to express himself, which is very natural to a human being. But then he also doesn't want to because he feels that he's spirit. What do you think about that, Priyank?
Yeah, interesting. Like Yogananda talks a lot about like staying silent, doesn't he? So like expressing yourself is such a human thing, like, and the silent cosmic consciousness is like a silent state of ecstasy, isn't it? So it's a nice parallel that he draws. I think it's very relevant for all of us. That we always like to fill our minutes with conversation, especially when we're with people, or like if we're alone, we like to be doing something, right? Not when we're meditating, obviously, but when we're alone, we're like, oh, we should be doing this. We don't just sit in stillness and silence and enjoy the moment. Well, I don't do that often. I should do that more.
Note to self. Yeah. It was a pretty epic way to get the documentary going. And I watched an interview for the directors, and they were saying, they had to read all the material time and time again, and it maybe took a little while for things to sink in. But I think they really, for me, took this early beginning of the documentary and summed up a lot of what Yogananda says, which is don't get disillusioned by Maya. Stick with the light and love, and stick to who you truly are. So I think it was a really great way to open up.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's very moving words. And then you see this whole scene where you see him, supposedly Yogananda as a baby, on a train, and then you see children playing, supposedly in India somewhere.
It's like a classroom, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a school.
They're like they're coming, running out of a classroom, and I've got first-hand experience of that actually. When I was that age, I was in India.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So
those are very like just nostalgia, brought back some experiences while watching that. Like not when I first watched a movie because you just go through it, but when you're watching it scene by scene, for me obviously with my Indian background, I can relate to a lot of that. So like so eager children after school was running out of the classroom either in recess or otherwise. Yeah, and there's a busy street in India. There's like rickshaws, there's cycles and stuff like that. And then there's women dancing in a festival. Again, that's very, it seems like this festival called Navratri. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, where like they have these like sticks and they dance together. Yeah, similar.
Yeah, I love this because it's coming from a place called Ballymoney in Northern Ireland, where there's like a few thousand people, and there's not very much diversity going on, and it's great just to see quite an immersive few flashes of scenes of what life might be like as a young person and as a young adult in India. So it really helps get the viewer into the mindset of Yogananda's world. So it was really cool, and I desperately want to go traveling in India. I haven't been yet.
Maybe we'll do one of our podcasts in India.
Yes, for sure. Yes, we should record it there. I would like to go as well, by the way. And then you see all those pictures in the street, and you see the children, you see the dancing, and then he continues talking, and then he says, "I see behind the scenes, the visible man is a shadow.
And then we have the picture there of what might be a man standing up on a hilltop looking over the sea with the clouds, dark clouds, and the light piercing through. And I just thought that was quite a striking picture because of the play of light and darkness, and what Yogananda says about how man is, as the human, really must seek the light through the darkness, through the veil of Maya. I thought that was a very, very good picture to show.
Yeah, and when he says "I see behind the scenes," there's a picture of I think a semi-elderly Indian lady. Again, this is very like it just hits so many nerves because obviously I've still got family in India, and they dress in that same way. Some of my aunts and my other relatives. So yeah, you see like a very small dark alleyway, and there's light at the end of the alleyway, and then she's walking through the alleyway. So the line is "I see behind the scenes," then that is the scene, which is again relevant to what Chris was saying in terms of the play of light and darkness, which is very interesting. And then the next scene before the mountain view was a temple bell, which is very, very familiar to probably all of us. But in India, the temple bells, they're always accessible. So in like most churches, etc., obviously they're in the towers, etc., and they're gone for the whole community. But in India, I don't know why, but they're usually available for you to play. So there's a central mechanism where you hit it and it plays the bell manually. So when you enter the temple, you usually play that, and then similarly when you leave, sometimes you play it as well. But it's interesting because I actually last year just put up a bell in my meditation room, my altar. So it's really nice because it kind of the reverberation kind of immerses you in that space. And I don't know if it's relevant because of astral sounds or something deeper than that, but it kind of zones your focus and concentration in, and it has a similar impact even after you finish meditation. So I usually play after meditation as well, and it kind of not only does it bring an end to the meditation I just had, but it kind of like lets you walk away with that feeling as well. So it's, that bell was a really, really nice touch, I think, in the movie for me.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe can we not share some of the insights probably gained through the lessons? I would say maybe not, but a
lot of the material is available
available online.
Yeah,
because Yogananda talks about where the bell originated from, and it originated supposedly from India and came from some of the sounds that the yogis or people would hear during meditation, and they were trying to reenact that by producing these bells, which I think is magical. That is absolutely magical. Trying to bring the heavens, into this realm,
and then into the spine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we can talk about that because that's in God Talks with Arjuna as well, in quite a lot of depth, all the different sounds of the different chakras as you go up.
Yeah, which again, if anybody's listening that hasn't done meditation, that doesn't know much about yoga, if you're a person of science, and usually this tends to be like the argument against yoga and stuff like this and spirituality, it's if you're a person of science, put it to the test. Run the experiment. Try sitting down and following procedures that are reproducible, and going through the meditative techniques and seeing if you can produce some of the things that are claimed by people like Yogananda and others in meditation. Just run the experiment. You might surprise yourself.
Yes, for sure. And I think even later on in the movie, they will talk about this a little bit as well. There's I think, a school in as a part of Harvard, and they look into spirituality and practices, and I think they have done similar experience, possibly.
You know, funny story. This is tangents of tangents now, but when I was working at Spotify, there was a person who was a senior economist there. He left to go start his own company, and it was in science of spirituality sort of theme. And he said that really what he is going to look into with others is breaking down the realm of spirituality with science, because so far science hasn't really invested in discovering some truths in these more subtle layers of reality, and probably because of the technology hasn't been there. But it was funny because this person sent an email to everybody at Spotify saying that he was going to leave to pursue these circumstances, and I thought that was amazing. So there's breakthroughs all over the place with people actually having the bravery to explore these more taboo subjects. I love it.
Yeah, in God Talks with Arjuna and in Autobiography of You, every so often the references like recent scientific discoveries and how it's relevant to what Yogananda was talking about when you wrote it over 50, 70 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, his first ever lecture when he landed into LA was Science of Yoga, or was it Science of Religion? Was it? Yeah, it was one of the two. Yeah, and that was really it. You know, he kind of came in hard, didn't he? And he led with his core philosophy or his core outlook, and it had a real impact on the people there at the time. So it still does to this day, of course. So.
Sounds good. I can't wait for more breakthroughs on this field. Let's continue with the script, actually. He continues to say afterwards, he says, as soon as I change my consciousness, I see everything just if it were a motion picture. And that, of course, to me, that brought to mind that one story in the Autobiography of a Yogi about when he went to the movie theater, and he actually it was showing scenes of World War One, I think it was at the time, and suddenly he felt completely immersed in the war and felt all the pain and all the suffering, and started the analogy of our whole life is like a cosmic motion picture, and the beam of light is basically the way we should follow to go back to where it all originates. I found that pretty beautiful. What do you think about that, Chris?
You know, I've heard through other people the analogy of life being some sort of hologram. And Yogananda himself discusses this to really, good extent. And if you think about life as a projection, we are the dancing of light on the screen, and then maybe the God force is projecting us onto this pan. So this is really relevant, and a lot of the modern day thinking is going this way. So Yogananda was way ahead of his time, but it's definitely a theme of the book Autobiography of a Yogi and a theme of his teachings.
For sure. So. Priyank?
Yeah, definitely. I love that actually, Chris. I just read about that analogy recently, that the screen and the movie theater, and I think in the Autobiography of Yogi Mike, it was even more it was more powerful because he was just in the middle of, if I remember, he was doing something completely, not relevant, but his thought was with what was happening in the war, and he was at that scene. Oh, I see death, I see bullets, etc. And it was like really like shocking for him, wasn't it? And then he came back and he's like, oh no, I'm here. It was just a movie. Such a powerful vision that he had, right? For him to be that shaken, especially for master to be your Paramahansa Yogananda to be that shaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite
Yeah,
vivid.
we actually have the quote here from the book.
Oh, yeah.
So after the scene when Yogananda vividly saw that he was, I think it was a general or an officer in a war, he actually thought he was there, and he actually thought he was dead, and he came back and heard this voice of God talking to him to say, look intently, a gentle voice spoke to my inner consciousness, says Yogananda. You will see that these scenes now being enacted in France are nothing but a play of Cartesio. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I can't pronounce it. They are the cosmic motion picture, as real and as unreal as the theatre newsreel you have just seen, a play within a play. And it's really, really impactful to think about that, because the moment that we're in now seems like a dream just a few moments later, you know, and we have this wonderful ability of memory. But how often do we struggle to recollect our memory, just as we might struggle to recollect a dream and what's real, what's not unreal? So
yeah. So I think in God Talks with Arjuna, again, I recently read this. So funny how this happens, but he says like, just as God gives you the power to see what He sees, like you know, when you dream, you're the dreamer, but your dream is created by you. So you experience that dream, but you know that when you wake, you know that real dream to not to be true, just a projection of your, you know, your consciousness. But when you have a deep sleep, you don't dream, and that you're in a much deeper state where with more dreamless, and that's the most relaxing, rejuvenating sleep state. And then he refers that to gods and the cosmic motion picture and the cosmic dream. So God is the dreamer, and this creation is the dream, which is really beautiful for us to experience that as God for our own dreams, as it were, and God Himself in this cosmic dream of the universe and manifestation.
Yeah. There's something more, I suppose, having read a lot of Yogananda's work, that he talks of man's ways being erroneous, whereby we don't pay attention to the idea of spirit enough. So we do stray and we do make errors and problems to ourselves, and we're not actually meant to suffer. This is something that we suffer by striking the wall of God's law, so to speak. So this illusion, this Maya is very, very strong. I think Yogananda talks about it as well, saying how strong the experiences are, and it's very easy to forget that this is the reality, that this is a play of sorts, and we should simply try to experience it and relinquish some of our own thinking and try to simulate some of the higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's this one line where he says, Lord, why dost thou permit such suffering? And the suffering in the motion picture sense kind of makes sense, because people don't know they're dreaming, they're in a motion picture. And then the answer that came to him was like, look intently. You will see that these scenes now being enacted in France are nothing but the play of that same word that you couldn't pronounce.
Yeah,
I can't pronounce.
The only reason I learned it is because of the autobiography.
How do you say it?
And from then on, because you've learned, Master uses such complex words.
Yeah.
How do you say it properly? Is it chiaroscuro?
Chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro.
Italian or Latin.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is basically, there is all the suffering, but it's also not real. And that kind of gives some solace to everything, I feel, this kind of thought.
Do you know, if we have time, I can read out a very quick part of on page 162 of the book. Yogananda talks about how he was in lotus posture going into meditation. He noticed some of the ceiling was dotted with small mustard colored lights scintillating and quivering with a radium like luster, which again, amazing poetic language. And he talked about how his consciousness essentially shifted and he lost the physical body's grossness, its heaviness, and became metamorphosized into the astral texture. So he felt like he was floating, and he was barely touching the bed, so very, very weightless. And he looked around the room, and the furniture and the walls were there as usual, but he could see through them, like, you know, things were invisible. So there was a voice spoke to him again at this point to say that this is the cosmic motion picture mechanism, and shedding its beam on the white screen of your bed sheets, it is producing the picture of your body. Behold, your form is nothing but light. That is incredible to me, and you know, for Yogananda to have experienced these things, it would be a real earth-shattering experience, and one that, you know, hopefully one day I would experience myself. But the cosmic motion picture mechanism, I just thought that was such an interesting way to put it.
Absolutely. So then he's in the womb. Then we see the picture where he's on the train. So obviously he was born then. And let's put some facts in there. So he was born in Gorakhpur, which is in North India, close to the Himalayas, on January 5th, 1893. He was the second son and the fourth child. And he grew up in Gorakhpur for the first 8 years. What do you imagine this to be like, Priyank, in this time especially? His father was like working at the railways, and the mother was at home with the children.
So this was obviously at the time where the British Raj was, the Empire, the British Empire was in control of India. So it would have been in that state, and that's why railways and these roles that Master Yogananda's father had were in prominence, and obviously they're quite similar to the UK. I personally work in the
True.
well, I like to think that, you know, I made that, like, masters. Yeah, no, I did make a conscious decision because there lots of like Lahiri Mahashaya, and because I read the autobiography of Yogi, so I remember like lots of cool people have worked on the railway. So I actually, you know, the place where he grew up in you know, in Himalayan plains, etc. I hope to go there later this year, but you know, it's been touched by so many like great souls that whole band of that northern Indian, you know, up to the Himalayas and obviously inside the Himalayas as well. And yeah, so yeah, going back to your question, how would it have been like growing up? Well, it's difficult to imagine, and especially with British rule back then, and it's different
right.
now. I grew up in India as well a little bit, but it was a very different time. But yeah, it would have been pretty cool, right? Because even though he was in a big family, etc., his mum and dad were actually quite spiritual people, weren't they? They weren't like they weren't just like average Joes. So like. So they say, like, you know, when you have a child, I think Yogananda talks about this in the lessons and in God Talks About Arjuna, etc. You attract the souls you attract to you know, to be in your womb and to have that enter your family home are relevant for the state of consciousness that you yourself are in. So for a Yogananda, you know, an avatar to be in that family, there's no ordinary family, right? This is not an ordinary mom and dad.
No, for sure. They were both disciples of Lahiri Mahashaya, and he predicted the birth of Yogananda as well, and that he will go to the West. I believe he predicted something like that.
Yeah. I love that story with his mum. Like, she was really charitable, and one month she gave away more than Yogananda's dad's entire month. And then Yogananda's father, what was his name? What was his name again? Anyway, we'll come back to that. He said, you know, control your spending within limits. Like, don't go overboard. And then she literally took her bags and was like, I'm ancient ultimatum, I'm going back to my parents' house. And then they obviously made up. But that was the only time, apparently, the only time that Yogananda ever saw them have a difference, which is quite amazing, isn't it? How often do
Yeah.
parents argue about the most mundane things, let alone me and my wife?
Yeah, the dad's name was Bhagwati Charan Ghosh. I probably butchered the pronunciation.
Bhagavati Charan Ghosh, I think.
Bhagwati Charan Ghosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a. I'm just reading actually on the Yogananda SRF.org. It's the older website, but there's some great early life and spiritual search information there. There's 7 pages on his, early life and biography. And it talks here from his earliest years. It was evident to those around him of his depth and his awareness. The experience of the spiritual was far beyond the ordinary. So it must have been quite interesting to have a child that grew up to be who we know today as Yogananda. I wonder what little quips he would have come out with to the parents.
Great. There's one more thing we wanted to talk about today, about especially Priyank, about the jingle that we play at the beginning of each episode. Let me play it one more time so we know what we're talking about. 1 second. There it is. So
Yeah.
it's I'll let you go, Priyank. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So we wanted to create something that was relevant for the podcast that we'd remember. And obviously I went through all of Master's cosmic chants, and there's 2 occasions that I know of that he either talks about wake or awake. And yeah, so one of them is this one, "Oh my saint, wake yet wake," and then that's what that is. And then the rest of the lines you can read up on in the cosmic chants. And then the other one is more somber, which is "Night has flown, dawn has come, wake my children, wake." And that one I thought was both really powerful chants, by the way. I don't know if do you guys use chants before meditation or
All
after
the time, yeah. I have a harmonium at home, love playing it. Yes.
Yeah. I've just had to bring this harmonium in the room because we've started doing London online meditations, and a few of us volunteered to do the harmonium playing. But yeah, so these are the 2. I don't think do you know of any others where it refers to awake or awake?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, so this one, the "Night has flown," is really somber, but I wanted it to be more positive, so we went with "Wake my children," wake. But obviously the chants are, Yogananda's chants are absolutely phenomenal. And actually, I think in a couple of minutes to come, he's going to do a chant, and we'll get to hear his voice and his musical prowess.
The booming voice.
Yeah, his voice was something, right? It was so powerful, and even now when I listen to his chants, it feels like he's there. Like there's so much strength in that voice.
Yeah. The little pamphlet that I mentioned, I read this morning before the meditation talks just about this, infusing the voice with the faith and confidence essentially in God, and talks about how the words come from thoughts, which come from either ego or spirit. And if you think about Yogananda, it's only spirit. Really, Sandy's just channels that so strongly, and it really comes across. Yeah, fantastic.
Sure. All right, I think we went through all the topics for minute 2. Does anyone want to add anything else for today's episode?
Yes, I do actually. There was. Oh no, let's do that next time. Sorry, ignore me.
Great. Sounds good. How about you, Chris?
All good. There's, a mountain of things to talk about, discuss, but I think we'll get plenty of opportunity later in the further minutes to come.
Who's that in the back? Let's say hi.
This is Barbara, my fiance.
Barbara.
Hey, Barbara.
Hello.
Congratulations. We heard about some sort of diamond,
Yeah.
diamond mechanism like on your thing, right?
Sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Can't hear.
It's unplugged.
Yeah. Oh,
We heard about some sort of diamond ring.
Yeah, happy is just waiting for the COVID permitting.
We look forward to seeing you one day. when this
Yes,
is over.
absolutely.
I want to see you one day.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
The SRF.
Yeah, I remember Chris invited us to Brazil.
It's warm and nice.
Yes.
So you're definitely welcome.
Look how red Chris has got. He's so embarrassed.
Is it hot in here or is it just?
That's okay.
It's funny.
These are good signs. Anyway, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Jai Guru, everybody.
I agree with him.